So ChatGPT is all the rage. It's been known to give advice, tell funny stories, and even write code. So let's talk about how to use ChatGPT with GDevelop, the open source, no code game engine. So I've been having a conversation with ChatGPT just to see what it could do. And I told it that its name is Helper Bob, because sometimes I need to have fun. And I told it that its job was to tell me how to do things in GDevelop. It politely said yes, and I thought I would give it an easy one by getting it to write some JavaScript to get the player to jump every 5 seconds using the platformer behavior. It again said yes, sure, and then proceeded to tell me how to use JavaScript in GDevelop, because you can do that. You can create a JavaScript event block and put it in your events just like a regular event, and write JavaScript if you want to. And this all seemed very impressive, but the problem is, ChatGPT confesses that sometimes it gets things wrong, and it will very confidently tell you a lie. So if there was something wrong with this JavaScript, I, as somebody who doesn't know how to code, wouldn't be able to fix it, which is kind of a problem. So I moved on from that and asked it to explain to me how to do the same thing, but in a step-by-step way using GDevelop's no-code system with events and actions and conditions. And this started off really well. It told me to set up a new game, create a sprite object and give it the platformer behavior, and then call it player. Good start. Then to go to the event editor and create a new event. Then for setting up the timer condition, it said, in the timer condition editor, set the following properties, which is a problem because there is no timer condition editor. But I assumed that it meant the page where you set up the condition's properties when you select a scene timer. So I followed the next steps and moved on from there. And I kept following the steps until I got down to the bottom, where it told me to add a repeat event, which GDevelop has. You can right-click on an event and go to Add Other Type and add the repeat type. But ChatGPT thinks that the repeat type repeats over time, whereas the repeat event type repeats multiple times within a single frame of your game, which means the whole thing it was trying to tell me how to do broke down, especially when it told me to choose forever to repeat the event indefinitely, because if you have an event that tries to repeat indefinitely inside of a single frame, when the game gets to that frame, it's going to freeze. So the next thing I tried to do was get it to try to explain a mechanic just more broadly. So not to get into specifics, because that's where the problem was. ChatGPT doesn't know certain things, and rather than admitting that, it just kind of makes things up. So the next thing I asked it to do was to explain how to break down the steps needed to make enemies spawn on the left side of the screen with a timer without referring to specific actions and conditions in GDevelop. So it'll break down the mechanic into the different parts without getting into specifics and lying to you. And this part worked out pretty well. It starts with setting up the game again, creating an enemy object, then creating a timer that you can use to determine when the enemy is supposed to spawn, then to spawn the enemy. When the timer reaches the desired time interval, trigger an event that spawns a new instance of the enemy at a position off screen on the left, and it even says that this can be done by creating a new enemy object or activating ones that you already have in place. Then setting the enemy movement to make it move to the right side of the screen, because what I was trying to do was create a game like Last Stand, an old zombie flash game. And it even tried to give some options for that. You could try changing the enemy's position to make them move, or apply a physics force if you gave them the physics behavior. Then reset the timer, because after spawning an enemy and setting its movement, you want to reset the timer so you can do that again. And finally, repeat the process. Again, it thinks that the repeat event is going to work over time, so there are some points with using ChatGPT where you're going to need to use your own judgment to determine what's right and what's wrong. I then asked it to break down how firing a bullet would work, and it does a pretty good job, but unfortunately it doesn't know that extensions exist. So the list it gave me would work, and it's essentially what you need to do when firing a bullet from scratch. But there are faster ways to do it in Engine, so this will get you there, but you should probably also check the extension list to see if someone has created an extension for the mechanic you want to make. So for ChatGPT, because it's not 100% accurate, it's a great tool for helping you break down mechanics and come up with new ideas and ways of doing things, but you'll definitely want to use the search function when adding conditions and actions, because there might be more relevant ones than ChatGPT is willing to show you. And when setting up those actions, try using the expression builder, because it will help you find the expression that you need without having to depend on ChatGPT. So if you want to use ChatGPT with GDevelop to help you build your games, I found this phrase helps to start the conversation. You are Helper Bob. You will help me break down game mechanics into their different components and explain them to me in the simplest way possible, preferably in a step-by-step manner that I can use in GDevelop, the free open source, no code game engine. I'll pin that opening phrase in the comments. But now, if you're curious about how to actually spawn enemies to create a wave defense game like Last Stand, that mechanic gets explained in this video.